Excuse me. Hello, everybody. We're gonna get going really quickly. We're gonna have, from what I understand, about 30 minutes of debate, and then there'll be about 30 minutes of bells, which I'll be asking for consent to steal about 15 minutes of that, which means we have about 45 minutes before we have to move. What I'm recommending is that we speak with or allow the witnesses that are here to do their presentations first and get through as many as we can. My hope is that we're going to have to go back to the House for this vote, and then come back after the vote and steal about another hour or so and continue with this presentation. My apologies to all the witnesses, both here and those joining us via video conference. We obviously would like to spend much more time with you, but as I'm sure you're seeing on CPAC, it's a little bit crazy today. And it seems as if Wednesdays are going to be this way for the foreseeable future. We are missing still two more, but I believe we have quorum. So I'm going to suggest we move forward. Now we have, who's here? Who's in the building here?
Here, and Ms. Hudson is by the conference.
So I'm going to introduce everybody that is either here or, like I said, via conference, and then we're going to get started with presentations because of the number of people that we got to get through. We should please keep them to seven minutes max, please. We have via video conference Donalda Madsen, thank you for joining us, from British Columbia. From the Canadian Federation of Independent Businesses, we have Corinne Pullman. Thank you again. Good to see you again. She's the Senior Vice President of National Affairs. From Technicolor, we have Dieter Huck, Vice President, Public Affairs and Corporate Social Responsibility, Moving Picture Company. Michelle Grady, Head of Film, Moving Picture Company. Emilie Dussault, General Manager, Moving Picture Company. Also, are they here as well? Excuse me, are they here as well?
Ms. Bayan is by
okay, and then we have Tita Bayan from Caregivers Action Center by video conference. Welcome. And then Christopher Smiley, Senior Advisor, Government Relations and Public Affairs with Canada's Building Trade Unions. And then these are not here? Okay. Well, that's a big group. So we're going to try and get through as many as we can. With all respect to those on video conference, we're going to allow the people that are here to speak first, and hopefully we have time to get to everybody, okay? So I believe up first is from the Canadian Federation of Independent Businesses, Corinne Pullman. 7 minutes, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thanks for the opportunity to be here today to share CVB's perspective on the Temporary Foreign Worker or TFW program. You should have a slide presentation in front of you, or as I guess it's about to be distributed, that I'd like to walk you through over the next few minutes. Now, CVB is a not-for-profit, nonpartisan organization representing more than 109,000 small and medium-sized businesses across Canada. Our members represent all sectors of the economy, and they're found in every region of the country. First, I want to say thank you for undertaking this review. The many changes that were made to basically gut the TFW program in the last couple of years made a difficult situation even worse for many smaller companies, some of whom have struggled ever since to actually keep their business afloat. To be fair, though, some of the allegations, and one in particular made against the TFW program, was true, in that some firms were using the TFW program to fill permanent and not necessarily temporary positions, simply because they could not find any Canadians to fill those jobs. So we do recommend, first and foremost, that a pathway to permanent residency be created for temporary foreign workers, including those in lower skilled occupations, but I'll get to more on that in a minute. First, though, I want to spend a couple of minutes correcting a few misconceptions about how the temporary foreign worker program was used by small and medium-sized companies in the last few years. Now, as you may be aware, CFIB takes its direction from our members through a variety of surveys, and I'll be sharing the results of the survey on a temporary foreign worker program. You should have a copy, or you will be getting a copy of the report on which that survey was based, and that'll have a lot more details than I'm going to be able to share with you today, but you will have it as well. First, though, some have actually disputed whether there is a labour or skills shortage in Canada, and I can tell you that it's certainly not the view of Canada's entrepreneurs. They say there is a serious and growing shortage of qualified people in many sectors and certain regions of the country. Chart 3, which hopefully you have in front of you now, is from our most recent business barometer, and it shows that between 1/3 and 1/2 of our small business members are facing a shortage of qualified labour issues right now, whether it's skilled or unskilled labour. Some also claim that businesses are not doing enough to attract and retain Canadian workers. In fact, the majority are doing a wide range of things because they would much prefer to hire a Canadian than going through the fairly lengthy and complicated process of hiring a temporary foreign worker. As you can see on slide 4, almost 3/4 told us that they'd expanded their recruitment efforts beyond their traditional region, and almost as many reported to have increased wages. Almost half mentioned adding flexibility in work hours or had introduced or expanded employee benefits. Clearly, the smaller businesses are trying to do everything they can to attract Canadians first. There also seemed to be a bit of a misconception over how widely used the TFW program was among small businesses. However, closer look reveals that the vast majority have not even considered using the temporary foreign worker program, as you can see on slide 5. In fact, only 14% say they've attempted to access the program, and only 10% were actually successful in hiring a temporary foreign worker. So while few have used it, for those that do, it's extremely important to their business. On slide 6, you can see that more than half said that hiring a temporary foreign worker helped fill the specific skilled or unskilled labour need. Even more importantly, I think, though, is almost 6 in 10 told us that having access to a temporary foreign worker had allowed them to keep their business open and keep Canadians workers in those businesses employed. Almost half also said it allowed them to actually expand their business. On the following slide 7, you can actually read about some of the ways our members themselves say that having a temporary foreign worker has actually benefited their business and their employees. And I will leave that to you to read on your own time. However, while few use it and those that do see great benefits in it, it's very difficult to access, as you can see on slide 8. When users of the program were asked about its various aspects, the majority rated timeliness of the process and the amount of paperwork needed as poor, and almost half rated the promptness of the government service as poor. So these 3 areas, timelines, I should say, paperwork, and promptness of government service are really where the government can start to look for administrative process improvements as well. But based on our members' feedback, we propose a number of measures on slide 9 that address some of the more prevalent concerns with the program. Now, Canada brings in thousands of lower-skilled temporary foreign workers each year with no pathway to permanent residency, while offering permanent residence to thousands more highly skilled, highly educated workers who have really no guarantee of a job in Canada. CFEB proposes that the immigration system ensure that temporary foreign workers, including those in entry-level positions, have a pathway to become permanent residents, for instance by expanding the Canadian Experience class and or giving an expanded number of temporary foreign workers access to provincial nominee programs. We would also, though, suggest potentially replacing the temporary foreign worker program, except in those certain circumstances where truly temporary workers are needed, with what we would call an Introduction to Canada visa. Rather than a temporary program, this would be a first step to permanent residency. The foreign worker would agree to work for 2 years with an employer while integrating into Canadian society. With appropriate limitations, this new facet of the permanent immigration system would create more stability within the workforce for employers and greater opportunities for those eager to come to Canada. More details on how this might work are actually in the report that you have in front of you. We're also supportive of the express entry system, and that allows employers to have a greater role in selecting immigrants. But this does not help those employers looking for those potentially lower skilled employees. CVB suggests that employers with staffing needs at all skill levels should be permitted to participate in selecting workers through the express entry system. To help address some of the concerns that TFWs may be more vulnerable in some circumstances than Canadian workers, we also propose a Bill of Rights for temporary foreign workers that outlines the many responsibilities that employers have agreed to when they're using the program. Employers would be responsible to provide a signed document to both the worker and the government will spot check would ensure proper compliance. We also have more details about how that would look in the report. Now, our members do not condone the misuse or abuse of the program of foreign workers under any circumstances, so we are overwhelmingly supportive of strong sanctions against those who do. There are already many rules in place, however, and we'd rather not create even more paperwork and instead would like to see enhanced enforcement of the rules as a better way forward. With the most recent changes, though, fees have increased dramatically as well. The fees per application is now $1,000 plus an additional $100 privilege fee. These application fees are non-refundable as well. At a minimum, any employer that has their TFW application rejected should have all or part of their $1,000 application fee refunded. Finally, I just want to mention that governments do need to review all training programs to ensure they encourage rather than inhibit hiring at all skill levels, and also to ensure that the training programs are better tailored to the needs of small and medium-sized businesses. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, and you're still with 22 seconds, so thank you very much for keeping within the time constraints. Next up, we have from Technicolor, I believe, Dieter, you will be speaking.
Merci, mais avec Émilie.
Thank you. I will also be sharing my time with Michel Grady and Émilie Dussault. Ladies and gentlemen, committee members.
To appear before you today regarding the temporary foreign program. There has been significant discussion about the program over the past 2 years, and it's fair to say that the program can be improved to the benefit of all Canadians. Technicolor is one example of a company that has a legitimate need and use for the program, can help support Technicolor, and change to the program can help Technicolor in bringing growth and jobs to Canada. As such, well, before I get to the program, here are a few words about Technicolor. Ayant son siège social en France.
Headquartered in France, Technicolor is a global technology leader in the media and entertainment industry. It's been in Canada since 1986, and it delivers visual effects, VFX, and animation services under 3 different brands: MPC, MRX, and Micros, with 550 employees in Vancouver, 260 in Vancouver, and 800 in Montreal, for a total of more than 1,600 in Canada. We're the largest VFX and animation company in Canada, and the only pan-Canadian company. Our VFX and animation business is focused on large budget productions, feature and animation films, and blockbusters requiring high quality, tight schedules, high skilled talents, and a very large number of talent per project, from 50 to 350 people. Technicolor also provides image and sound post-production in Montreal and Toronto. Altogether, Canada is the second largest country of the Technicolor group of companies, with more than 2,300 people.
Industry across Canada, with nearly 16% annual growth and nearly 15,000 employees. Canada grows faster than the rest of the world, 6 to 7%, and there is no reason why growth should slow down. VFX and animation employees are highly paid, $63,000 on average, rather young, 29 years old on average, and highly skilled and educated. The industry exports more than 90% of its production and contributes directly to an equivalent increase of Canadian GDP of more than $850 million. Technicolor's ambition is to grow by 25% its VFX and animation to 2,000 employees by the end of 2017. The industry is facing a huge shortage of both Canadian and permanent resident labor. The problem is both volume and education level. On average, we only find 50% of our labor needs, ranging from 55% for juniors down to only 33% for the most experienced employees who are essential to delivering our projects, despite all the initiatives we've launched. 2 internal training academies in Vancouver and Montreal, each with 120 seats per year, and strong relationships and support for universities and colleges. Ironically, the VFX and animation industry in Canada is a victim of its own success. Strong growth will maintain the skills shortage for many years, despite efforts made to increase the number of students and to increase the education level. One positive result is that there is no unemployment in this sector, provided the candidates have the required skill level.
L'aspect négatif de cette situation.
The downside is that the shortage will remain over many years, and we absolutely need temporary foreign workers to match the growth and to keep mandates and production in Canada awarded by our customers. In 2015, we required 867 work permits across Canada, 512 in Montreal, 310 in Vancouver, 45 in Vancouver. The trends are similar for 2016.
Program exists to solve problems that are not present in our industry, and even worse, they create real obstacles to steady growth. These aspects include the Labour Market Impact Assessment, the LMIA, transition plans, the 4-year limit on the cumulative duration of work permits, the restriction on low-wage salaries impacting junior talent. The LMIA and transition plans generate unpredictable processing delays from 2 to 4 months on average, but sometimes much longer. They create uncertainties about being able to recruit the talent on time to start production. They're also both repetitive since, as previously mentioned, the labor shortage will remain in our industry for the foreseeable future. The 4-year limit on cumulative duration of the work permits is very detrimental to the industry. 4 years comes up quickly, and many of our experienced talents are forced to leave because they reach their limit, frequently over discontinuous periods. With regard to the restriction on low-wage temporary foreign workers, when a student graduates and is hired as a junior talent, their wage is below the prevailing provincial wage until they reach 3 years of experience. It's impossible to hire and keep a junior temporary foreign worker except for U.S. juniors, thanks to NAFTA. We need about 30 to 40% juniors in a studio, which means we need about 15 to 18% of junior temporary foreign workers. In addition, the 10% low-wage temporary foreign worker headcount limit per site comes into force in July. This restriction prevents the growth of the studios, which rely on having juniors. For example, with our existing 1,600 seats across Canada, Technicolor needs to recruit 180 graduates per year and employ altogether about 560 juniors. It's not possible to find them in Canada alone.
L'industrie des effets visuels et de l'animation devrait être un cheminement.
The VFX and animation industry should be an ideal path to transition TFWs to permanent residency and permanent immigration to Canada. The skill level, education, wage, and age are all ideal. But the industry is project-based, and temporary work contracts are the rule. It creates a significant difficulty for talent to access permanent residency through the Entry Express program. Even though there's no unemployment in our industry, a temporary work contract doesn't grant any eligibility points, compared to 600 points for a permanent contract, or of a total of 1,200 qualifying points for the full process. Very little talent is able to qualify, thus preventing people to become permanent residents.
Industry is a jewel of Canadian industry and an ideal industry for the temporary foreign worker program. However, in order to maintain such high growth rates, the following 4 changes to the program are needed. 1. Exemption from the LMIA and transition plan. 2. Exemption from the 4-year cumulative duration limit for work permits. 3. Exemption from the requirement that salary be above the prevailing provincial wage for junior employees, a 3-year work permit for young graduates, and an exemption from the headcount threshold for low wages temporary foreign workers. 4. Facilitate the transition to permanent residency in our industry by allocating the same number of points to a temporary work contract as a permanent work contract to provide equal chance of success. Thank you very much for your time, and we're ready for questions.
Thank you. Great teamwork. Now we're going to go via video conference to Donalda Madison. 7 minutes, please. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for receiving my concern. I have been in dialogue several times with government MPs regarding my perceived discrepancies within the temporary foreign worker caregiver program. Firstly, I want to make it clear that our family is not asking for a grant, a handout, or exceptions to be made for us. We would just like the program to be fair for the Canadians and the in-home caregivers that are using the program. We do not use the program to make or maintain a profit, as occurs in other areas of the temporary foreign worker program. The caregiver arm of the temporary foreign worker program, as we knew it, was dissolved in 2014, and a new process was incorporated. The caregiver program that existed from the mid-60s to 2014 allowed families to hire caregivers from another country when a Canadian worker was not available to care for their children, disabled children, adults, and seniors who wanted to remain in their own homes safely and independently, saving the government hundreds of thousands in health care dollars, as well as being a venue for early childhood support. The original program worked amazingly well for our family and our caregivers for 26 years. Prior to the fall of 2013, an application for an LMO was a process that was not charged for. In 2013, there was a fee of $275. On December December 1st, 2014, the fee became $1,000. We have been using the Live-In Caregiver program since 1989 with great success to help us care for our multiply challenged 49-year-old son who is not able to support himself in any of the basic necessities of life. Families who are attempting to care for their children, disabled adults, and seniors trying to stay in their own home should not be required to pay the new LMIA and definitely not pay again for another LMIA after a 1 year of employment with the same caregiver so that they can extend their work permit. In summary, we request the elimination of the LMIA for families. Number 2, we ask for a review of the application program, make it streamlined and manageable for families. The denial of application is currently very, very high, and the requirements are not consistent. I suggest an upgrade needs to occur for standardization of information required, and it needs to be in plain and simple format. The current application is 30 pages, requiring the help of an agency to ensure a greater degree of success at being accepted. You add in another $800 to $1,600 for this fee. Under the new regulations, the costs just keep accumulating for families. Number 3, we ask that you remove the requirements of the unfair hourly wage for disabled and seniors. The caregiver support requirements did not change when our son turned 19. Why did the hourly rate for the support of a disabled person or a senior change? It is now higher than what the BCGEU regulates for its caregiver employees. We need the hourly rate to remain at the minimum wage with capacity to incrementally increase the salary with experience in our home. Increasing the hourly rate, the hourly salary to $17.52 an hour increases the amount paid out by $21.45 a month. Families cannot pay this amount. Consequently, the aspiring foreign caregivers do not have jobs to come to. For-profit companies like Tim Hortons and families with children under 19, the minimum wage is allowed. When a disabled child is 18, the base hour rate is $10.50. But when the child turns 19, the rate becomes $17.50. This is very penalizing. The care needs have not changed. Where did the government get the provincial median wage assessment? And many families are not paying $17.50 per hour for Canadian workers, yet we have been mandated to pay this amount for the same work done by a temporary foreign worker caregiver. Number 4, every Canadian citizen pays room and board. The maximum previously charged was $375 a month, which is already below government standards. The shelter allowance alone in BC is $750 per month. Families should have the option to deduct room and board of $375 or less. This should be a choice and not a determination of the government. Number 5, currently temporary foreign worker caregivers rules mean that employer families are required to pay for a caregiver's medical coverage, airfare, recruitment fee, and health insurance, rising from $2,000 to $5,000, even if the relationship doesn't work out. These are all recent changes that have been made without much thought. This is similar to a benefit package that exists with companies that have over 10 employees, not one caregiver. Number 6, an arm of bureaucracy needs to be created that will protect caregivers and give them a safe place to go to when abuse occurs. Number 7, the fact is this: families will no longer be able to afford these changes. They will be placing their seniors and disabled in nursing homes. The current healthcare system cannot handle this. Half of Canada's population is over 50. Caregivers and in-home workers are at an all-time shortage as it is. Local extended care hospitals and community living agencies are experiencing severe staffing shortages. And number 8, as predicted, the new regulations have resulted in a limited number of caregivers being available, putting families and seniors at huge risk. I realize that your main concern is to hire Canadian. In our 27 years of advertising, we have not been able to hire a Canadian worker to work in our home, and we would be very happy to be able to. We have successfully worked with 10 or 11 lovely Philippine women who have helped us care for our son. The available caregivers from the Philippines and other countries are also desperate to come to Canada and become permanent residents, eventually Canadian citizens. These caregivers who have already immigrated are a large and supportive part of our country. They too are being penalized because the process is so difficult for families that the caregivers cannot get the positions they have been trying to apply for. Remember, very often the men and women who come to Canada through the caregiver program often move into care positions in our nursing homes and hospitals. We need these eager and willing caregivers. Thank you. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate you being succinct in your comments. We are going to go now to Mr. Christopher Smiley from the Canada's Building Trade Unions. 7 minutes, please. We may have to interrupt you, just a heads up, if the bells start to ring, which I imagine they will any moment, to ask for unanimous consent to continue. So I apologize in advance.
No sweat.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the committee, and fellow witnesses. I should have brought my entire comms team to help deliver my remarks today. That was pretty cool. CBTU represents 500,000 skilled trades workers across Canada in virtually all sectors of construction. Today, I hope to bring you a tip-of-the-spear view of the Temporary Foreign Worker Program, challenges, opportunities, and things we need to get right. In 2013, just under 12,000 TFWs entered Canada in the trades we represent. There are over 1.2 million participants in the construction industry in Canada. Today, I'll talk strictly construction and the skilled trades. In our universe, the TFW program is not heavily relied upon by most employers. The program really is a Band-Aid solution to systemic failures in the training system and workforce mobility measures in our country. We don't have a great way to incent Canadians to be mobile to go to where the work is in construction. So in some cases, we experience regional unemployment in our trades while importing workers from elsewhere to other regional economies in Canada. This makes little to no sense to us. This is an enormous opportunity to get this file right. Improved worker mobility would undoubtedly reduce reliance in construction on the Temporary Foreign Worker Program. CBTU sees the TFW program as one possible last response to workforce scarcity issues. While there are times, places, and situations where it may be the most expedient way for businesses to meet its workforce needs on an emergency basis, it's not the best solution to Canada's HR problem. The TFW program should not take the place of a proper economic immigration system, nor act as a tool business can rely on again and again. If we had trained and continue to train Canadians in the skilled trades or any sector, the reliance on the program would dwindle across the board. This isn't limited to construction. It's a broader issue linking our education system with industrial demands to make sure our education system is actually pumping out the people the economy needs. Canada needs to take a long-term view on how we will fill these jobs in the future. A tsunami of retirements is upon us in construction. More than 200,000 workers will retire in our sector over the next 5 years. Meanwhile, there is a chronically underemployed generation looking for training and job opportunities amongst Canada's youth. Until Canada addresses the skills and training and apprenticeship issues, emergency workforce solutions like the TFW program will continue to challenge our economy. The TFW program is not a solution to Canada's aging workforce problem. We need to get 3 things right. Remove obstacles to interprovincial travel for temporary work for Canadians, increase the number of graduates of apprenticeship programs, and enhance the way we use the apprenticeship system in Canada. We need to get more employers to participate in skills training programs. Only 19% of Canadian companies actually hire and train an apprentice. Oh, I have 5 things we should work on, sorry. We need to change outdated perceptions of careers in construction and promote the industry to new sources of labor like women, Aboriginals, and new Canadians. If employers can't entice Canadians to take certain jobs, raise wages. It's the best market solution to skills mismatches and job vacancy issue after we fix the training issue. If we have to continue to use the TFW program, it should be focused on bringing about the best outcomes for the existing Canadian workforce. This means ensuring the work environment is safe and functioning to Canadian and provincial standards. On our work sites in construction, we worry about safety. TFWs have to be able to integrate into a Canadian work environment in a way that does not create a hazard or dangerous situation for other workers, for them or for themselves. 2 key safety considerations for construction. First being language. Crews must be able to communicate with each other in either English or French. Secondly, certification. We must ensure all workers meet legal and industrial standards on industrial construction sites. We think the TFW program can be used to grow training opportunities for Canadians. What if when a TFW with a journey person's qualification in the skilled trades is permitted to enter Canada, this opens up a mandatory apprenticeship spot for a Canadian? We think companies, as part of the commitment to the Canadian economy, should hire an apprentice as part of this transaction. If the company cannot, due to scale, size, or logistical challenge, a fee of, say, $10,000 could be paid by the company to the Receiver General. These funds could then be used for an appropriate labor market information system or placed in the Canada Job Grant System or similar training infrastructure fund. If none of these options are agreed to by the employer, the TFW permit should be denied. This ensured the company is committed to training Canadians and also facilitates the immediate economic need of the company. If the company cannot demonstrate a commitment to the Canadian training system, I repeat, the permit should be denied.
I beg your pardon, Mr. Smiley. I do at this point have to ask for consent. You only have about a minute left.
Yep.
Do I have consent to continue? Yes? Okay, please continue, sir.
So, I repeat, the permit should be denied. Changes in 2013 already ask employers for a training plan to wean companies off the program in the future. Why not in the skilled trades go the extra step and actually encourage actual hiring of Canadians during the TFW process? The Canadian Chamber of Commerce called upon the new government to revoke the changes made to the employer compliance and training plan requirements. The Chamber calls the program cumbersome and a threat to the Canadian industry. We reject this assertion strongly. A lack of commitment to training Canadians for the job of the future is the real threat. We think the changes made by the last government continue to be justified, given the changes for employment opportunities for Canadians and underlying economic activity in certain sectors. We don't think the program should operate in areas of high unemployment, and to protect and preserve jobs for Canadians, the permit should not be granted in areas where regional unemployment exceeds rates that of the national average.
Thank you very much, sir. If there were additional notes, please provide them to the clerk, and we'll make sure that they get translated and distributed in part of the record. We do have one other group that I would like to squeeze in, of course, if given consent. We have one group that has traveled here from Vancouver. Whether we are coming back is now in a bit of uncertainty. We have 28 minutes. I would like to give them 7 minutes. Do I have consent? If we have the opportunity to come back. I'm seeing that they are here. They've traveled to be here. Hopefully we have the opportunity to come back and get everybody in. We have 1, 2, 3 more to go. I can get one in for sure. Sorry, and yeah.
Sorry,
okay.
Just a point of clarification.
Yes.
I mean, the question of coming back, I realize obviously we have a vote, but I mean, I'm certainly support hearing from the group, but I also think we need to hear from other folks that carved out time in their lives to hear from them.
And we will attempt to get them all in. I just have I'm not as 100% confident that we're going to have the time when we come back, and I have a group that's traveled here versus
so we are coming back. Is that what you're saying?
That's the intention, yes. Yes. So I'd like to welcome, and again, my apologies to everybody for this, but it is what it is, as they say. I'd like to welcome to the table the Vancouver Economic Commission, Sean Elby and Kathy Gibson. Thank you so much for coming and seeing this sort of craziness that goes on here. And I would like to give you 7 minutes, please. Go ahead.
Great. Good evening. My name is Sean Elby, and I'm the Sector Development Manager supporting the technology sectors on behalf of the Vancouver Economic Commission. We're the economic development agency for the City of Vancouver, and our mandate is to position Vancouver as a global destination for innovative, creative, and sustainable business. Our focus is on the wealth-generating, high-growth, low-carbon, knowledge-based economy. And many of the folks in the room here today aren't familiar with the fact that Vancouver has the highest rate of economic growth of any major Canadian city. And according to the Conference Board of Canada, that will continue from now until 2019. Vancouver has also achieved the lowest unemployment rate in Canada, and this points to labor shortages across the greater economy, but acute labor shortages in the sectors that are leading our economic success and the ones that we work with most closely, which are the technology sector, the digital entertainment sector, and also companies that operate in the green economy. I'm certain that you've heard from your business constituents that the things that we hear day in and day out, that they're facing challenges finding the right talent to fill the types of positions that they have available. In Vancouver, there are 2,000 technology positions available today, and there's a forecast of a labor shortage of 15,500 positions in the technology sectors over the next 5 years. So why are we seeing this growth? Well, Vancouver, as many of you know, has a track record for being a livable city, which is an attractive characteristic for top talent. We have some of the lowest corporate tax rates in the world. We have significant amount of investment from all three levels of government in our innovative sectors, and we sit in this amazing corridor from San Diego right up to Vancouver that represents the wealthiest, greenest, and most innovative corridors in the entire world. And this is what's drawing talent to Vancouver. Major global technology companies, digital entertainment companies, and clean tech companies are all setting up offices and investing in our city. And another thing that's really exciting is that we have this globally recognized startup ecosystem. Vancouver's ranked as a top startup hub, and we just learned recently that Vancouver is the top city in Canada for head office growth. And with these growing head offices, there's increased demand for executive leadership, senior talent, and the global expertise that in many cases we just simply don't have in Vancouver. And these industries aren't thinking inside our borders, and they're transforming our local communities and reshaping our cities. We have 5.5 million new square feet of commercial office space coming online in Vancouver, and 2/3 of that is being taken up by our technology and digital sectors. To support these efforts, we've reached out across BC, we've reached out across Canada to try and support our companies in filling these roles. And these efforts have been recognized by the provincial government, who has asked Vancouver Economic Commission to support their efforts in articulating a technology talent strategy. It's through these lenses that we recognize the serious and immediate labor shortages in Vancouver, and we are very thankful that you've invited us here to be your partners on the ground in Vancouver to address these issues.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Sean. And thank you to the committee members and to the chair for the opportunity to present. My name is Kathy Gibson, and I am here again on behalf of the VEC. We are privy to quite a lot of information from a lot of different companies within Vancouver and foreign direct investors that are looking at investing in Vancouver. Typically, we hear from folks that are shopping different cities and determining where they want to set up base for their operations. Talent acquisition and availability is a key consideration in where those folks decide to come. We're very interested today in really focusing this conversation around knowledge-based, highly skilled, highly mobile workers. There's an opportunity here. Employers have a legitimate need and use for the program, and changes to the program can help support bringing growth and jobs to Canada. The current program has been designed for low-skilled workers. As a consequence, Canadian businesses are not able to access the much-needed skilled workers their businesses require. It's a different dialogue and a different narrative than discussions of low-skilled workers. A significant and exciting opportunity exists to ensure that we are building policies that are congruent with the needs of the industry. We must ensure that we are building programs and we are capitalizing on excellence rather than adequacy. Employers need to be able to hire the best talent, people who can drive innovation and are highly sought after with specialized skills. As you're aware from your contingents, we hear from employers that it is in their interest to maximize domestic Canadian workers first, as it's very costly to run international searches, attract and interview talent, and then look to relocate them. Once finally found, there is a time sensitivity in bringing key personnel into Canada. Of course, the intent to protect vulnerable temporary foreign workers is certainly there. However, technology-based, digital entertainment-based workers are well-educated, speak English, are well-paid, are headhunted, and are in high demand internationally. Including technology workers in this vulnerable category is problematic, inefficient, and an unnecessary drain on government resources. You have the opportunity to design a program that could make Canada more attractive than the USA and other regions through immigration programs. It should be noted that the brain drain of Canadian talent to the US will always be an issue. Given the global mobility of technology talent coupled with the sheer tenfold size of the US economy and population, the loss of some talent must be expected. In light of this fact, Canada must reform and improve policy in order to be competitive and retain talent.
Ms. Gibson, sorry.
Yes.
I hate to cut you off.
No problem.
But we are...
No problem. Should you like to ask me about the unintentional consequences, we'd be very happy to address those questions and recommendations.
So, first of all, thank you. Thank you to all of the witnesses so far. We do have to move, but a couple of things before we do. There is a, for the committee members, there is a bus, a shuttle, that will be waiting for us out there to take us up there. So that's one. Two, when we do come back, we will be hearing first from Ms. Ban. I apologize for the delay, but I promise you will be first on the list when we come back. We are also hearing from Rory McAlpine from Maple Leaf Foods and Anthony Pollard from Hotel Association of Canada. Two quick things. Number one, because questions have not been able to be asked, what I would suggest is that members would submit questions to the clerk. The clerk could then pass those questions on to you for answers that we could then distribute to the committee and have in record. I apologize that we weren't able to ask questions in person, but we will be doing that. We won't have time to follow up with questions when we come back to those that have spoken already. And I think we do have to. Sorry, Ms. Ashton.
Just a quick question. Sorry. I mean, first of all, I find it very troubling that we've had this whole meeting without time for questions. And while it's good to apologize, I think I can certainly say that I find that very troubling. No, sorry, Chair. And my second question is, excuse me.
Please.
My second question is, with the second round, will we have time for Q&A, given that we won't be having the same kind of time
That will
constraints?
depend, of course, on the time that is allowed to us.
I would encourage the committee, and I hope that you will take that opportunity.
Thank you. Adjourned. Thank you.
suspended.
Or suspended, sorry. Suspended.
Thank you.